and welcome to the Moviescramble podcast. We are back. And by that, I mean all three of us are together in our own respective studio locations, and we are back to review movies. It's been a while, it's been emotional, and it's just been. So this evening, I am joined by both of my colleagues, which is a wondrous treat to see both of their shining, happy little faces. All right, okay, fair enough. Yeah, I may be lying there. Okay. I am joined by my two colleagues on the Moviescramble podcast. So, first up is young lady Mary. How are you doing?
Young lady Mary makes me sound like royalty. I quite like that. I'm really good. I am honestly so happy. I know we went out and had our lovely little catch up, but actually to be back doing pods with you guys means everything. So little heart, I'm very excited.
Yep, excellent. We're hoping that Mary is sort of curbed some of her right wing tendencies, and she'll be pretty much with us.
Never.
Also on the pod is Mr. Simpson. Thomas, how the hell are you doing?
I am doing very well, John. Thank you. Just to echo what Mary was saying there as well, that it's good to be back, the three of us, in the virtual room, so to speak, ready to talk about film and try and not get cancelled like we would do in the pub.
Yes, the pub is a bit problematic sometimes, but hey ho, a couple of Manhattans down and the world seems like a much nicer place, I must say. On the podcast today, we are going to be reviewing two very recent films. Later on, we will be discussing John Wick 4, but we are going to start with a film called Sisu, which has just got a release in the last couple of weeks.
He was a Finnish commando. He lost his home and his family in the war. He became a one-man death squad. He's one mean motherfucker that you do not want to mess with.
It is a film from Finland. It's directed by Jan-Mari Helander, and it's set in Finland during the tail end of the Second World War. The film opens with an old guy prospecting for gold, finds a tiny nugget, really pleased with himself, and then basically finds a complete shit ton of the stuff and decides that he wants to cash out and actually just get some money rather than having all this shiny stuff about. So packs it all on a horse, heads for town, and don't you know, he meets Nazis that are retreating away from Finland back into Norway because basically the war at this point isn't going particularly well for them. First, the Nazis just ignore him. Old man, he's heading towards basically certain death, as they say. Meets another bunch of them who don't treat him in the same way, and basically shit happens. And from there, it really happens. It's fairly non-stop after that. It's just one action scene after another. And considering that it's not a particularly long film, we'll talk about length later on when we talk about John Wick, no doubt. It is quite possibly one of the best films that I've seen this year, and I kind of suspect that my colleagues will echo the same sentiment. So, start with you, Mary. What are your initial thoughts on Sisu?
So, I don't think I can actually describe it accurately, and I did do a review for the site, but I don't even know if I've done it justice because it is 90 minutes of, to use a Sammy phrase, just balls to the wall. I watched the trailer and I knew it was going to be violent, but I don't think I was expecting. I've never seen such new and innovative ways to kill people as in this film. Like I can't put it into words, which is not good for a podcast. I absolutely loved it. I thought it played well with this sort of trope of, kind of Finnish men are very serious and very silent, and he's looking for gold, and you just think, oh, that poor wee grandpa is going to trek, all this scorched earth and all the rest of it. You've got Axel Hennie playing Bruno, the sort of Nazi troop leader. I've absolutely loved him since I saw him in Headhunters, which is an adaptation of a Joan Esbo book. And he's this perfect, really steely-eyed, cap at a jaunty angle, no fucks given sort of bad guy. So there's really clear, binaries of who to root for and who you want to get fucked up. And my God, do they get fucked up. Like I said, I've never seen deaths like it. It was incredible.
Nice one. Yeah, totally agree with you. There's a lot of invention in there, which I'm sure we will talk about. Thomas, what are your first thoughts?
For me, this is my film of the year so far.
Nothing's going to top this.
I had so much fun watching this, and I'd quite a hard week with assignments and that. I didn't sit my teeth. I went, I'm going to go and watch this first and get a chance. I really want to see it. And I'm sitting, and I was just like hooked for 90 minutes. And there was at points I burst out laughing, but not in a bad way, not in a mocking the film way. And I can't believe I'm seeing this sort of way. It's unapologetic. It doesn't care if it's too violent. It doesn't care if there's no overarching message or depth to anything. It is just this old guy killing Nazis for 90 minutes, more or less, and whatever. It does what it says in the tin, more or less, and it's just basically the kind of action film. And it's very low budget as well, by the looks of it, and it really does show up a lot of the Hollywood blockbusters that have been coming out in recent years. Yeah, it's just an absolute blast, and the performances are really good as well, and it's really well shot, well directed. There's not a lot of dialogue in the film. Our hero has a line at best the whole movie, and it just shows you that you don't need a lot of talking and words to get the story going. And yeah, if people would turn around and say, "Well, there's not much of a story," and it's like, "What's even better?" It's a simple plot.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to keep it as simple as possible, because that's the kind of thing that they do with, well, you'll know firsthand experience, they do with short films. It's single idea. It's quite a straightforward plot that they usually have, and it's just however you execute that plot that makes the difference between a good film, a great film, and a really bad film. When there's too much on the go, then you get diverted. Now, that's not to say there's not a lot of interesting stuff going on in the film. There are wee subplots and stuff. There's the Nazis, as they're retreating, have taken 5 women hostage as well. So there's elements in there of like a different sort of story, and there's also a wee dog as well, which doesn't get the best of treatment because he keeps leaving it. But the director had stated that for the film he had a basic outline of point A to point B, and he came up with scenarios in between. So he had the story first, and then he plotted the action in between it, rather than sometimes a Hollywood film, you're basically just stitching together action scenes and having plot, to try and marry them all up. So it was done the proper way. And what he said was he would come up with ideas for these action beats and then have to work out a way to get his protagonist out of the situation that he had put him in. And he said that was the worst part of it, because he could come up with all these scenes, let's say, he's facing off a tank. How does he get away from that? What does he have to do? And obviously not repeating himself. And that's one thing that film definitely does not do, is repeat itself. There's all sorts of different action scenes in there. Some close quarters, some, like I've mentioned, involving tanks, and there's a water-based sequence as well, and there's a plane, and there's all sorts of stuff going on there. And it's just, as you said, non-stop. It's just absolutely fantastic. So what did you think? Like you've mentioned there, Thomas, the main role has no or very little dialogue. It just has the story to explain it. Other people fill in the blanks about this old Finnish man. There's a very interesting scene quite early on where they've already confronted him once, and they report back to headquarters, and the message they get back is, just leave him, just go in the opposite direction, because he's got this reputation from a previous life. Now, you can tell that he's like a hard man and everything, but it's not put across until he actually goes into action. And this isn't to say he's like an invincible character. He gets the shit beaten out of him. By the end of the film, my God, the guy's in a bit of a mess and all that. But What did you think about the fact that they went down that route, which is starting to become more established, of having an older actor actually in it and basically performing a lot of his own stunt work and action work? That is pretty decent, you know. It's a still a bit of a strange thing to do, but what do you think? Do you think they pulled it off? Do you think it worked?
Well, definitely. I mean, you just look at the guy and he looks like a total badass. And that goes a long way to it. You know, it's like, yeah, it could be somebody's wee sweet grandpa in the pub type thing, but there's something in his eyes that tells you he's seen some stuff and he could fuck you up if he wanted to. And I've actually seen that acting when they did his other films, Red Exports, the Christmas Tale, I think it's called, the really evil Santa one.
All right.
And that was more of a kind of a comedy, very dark comedy at that, but it was good to see the getting the range of the character in that kind of sense. But and the director, for that matter, not that this film's not about humour. It's a very fun. It wants you to be entertained by what's going on. It's not a realistic insight on a violent world. It's not a historical war drama in the sense that here's what World War II was like. But no, I like the fact that it's just an older character because for me it lent more weight to the character. I mean, if you've got this big army guy walking by, you're like, yeah, well, the soldiers are going to mess with him, it's going to be tough and that. But they don't see him as a threat. They just see him as this old man they could just push about and bully and rob. And they're gravely mistaken. As you said a bit early on when I told, these were fortunate. You're fortunate that he only killed a handful of men. And just saying, like, get out there, leave them, but they can't. And the guy is like a Viking. He's like a Viking warrior in the film. And I think his age helps his portrayal of the character more than anything.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think, Mary?
Yeah, no, totally agree. I mean, when the film starts, you do get that hint because he's got the what looks like bullet holes like on his shoulder, and then this weird scar that almost looks like he's been autopsied because it's like the full length of his torso. And so you're kind of going, oh, maybe he's been tortured, or, you know, maybe he was at the front or whatever. And you're right, there's not a lot of dialogue, but I'm a big fan of the fact that there's so many times where it was literally just maybe he just tensed his knuckles slightly, or there was a wee flicker of the eyes and you're like, oh shit, it's about to go down. So you don't need all of that. But I think, yeah, the age lends a sort of gravitas, and it also gives the background of he'd been through all these different wars, and that's how he built up these skills. He wasn't just this like mental killing machine out of nowhere from rural Lapland or whatever. He'd actually had the chance to serve, and that's why he'd built up these skills. But I do love when they say to him, you know, the Russians call him the immortal. So although they say he's not invincible, they do say he is the immortal. And, you know, what could they possibly have done else to this guy? He literally sets himself on fire at one point. Comes out the other side totally fine. So it's almost like he plays into his own legend. And I love that there's loads of little scenes where the Nazis are sort of looking around at the forest or what's left of it, or sort of under their tanks or up at the sky, because it almost gives this illusion that he is this sort of like omnipresent, you know, immortal, as it were, who's coming to get them. And yeah, no, I think the age lends the gravitas, but it also gives you an understanding of, yeah, he's picked up these skills legitimately. He's not some, like, you know, crazy grandpa living at the edge of a forest who just happens to be good at killing off entire bands of Nazis. There's a slight depth to it.
Yeah. Obviously, with the title itself, Sisu is a word that doesn't really translate. It's like best described as being sort of stoic determination or tenacity of purpose. Basically, you don't give up until the other person gives up. That's what it's all about, and that's what sort of made him this sort of legend in the first place. So, in terms of the action, I've briefly sort of mentioned it before. A lot of it was very inventive. I'd seen some stuff like it before, but a lot of it was, you could tell that they put a lot of thought into it and everything. What was your favourite sort of your favourite killing spree? Sounds bad.
Me or Simmy?
Oh, either or, and both of you, obviously.
I'm just going to jump in because I'll say this and then I'll get a fit in the giggles. Never have I ever and get his throat slit so that somebody else could breathe some air bubbles underwater. So it's a toss-up between that and the guy who got completely bulldozed by the tank because looking at his remains was absolutely incredible. And I don't know what that says about me, but honestly, shout out to the prosthetics team in that movie because usually if somebody gets rolled over or like there's like some sort of injury, the camera moves away. No, there was a lovely long tracking shot the length of his body while we saw the suit being left. So it's a toss up between those two, the throat slit and the tank. So
yeah, it's a good wee bit after that where they go, was that Hans? The guys in the truck afterwards, I was kind of looking and going, yeah, never mind. What about yourself, Thomas?
Well, for me, I don't want to spoil the final kill in the film, but for me, I just loved everything about that. But again, I would spoil it. The minefield, though, kind of near the beginning, that was
tense.
That was one of my favourite scenes, and you've got like the first Nazis are kind of like, well, they're really that scared of this guy to, I'm actually a bit worried about this guy to you're saying towards the end, John, they're terrified that you could be anywhere. But the minefield scene is incredible because the mines are going off, all the smoke and dust is there. The commanders sending his troops in, and just one by one they're getting picked off in very inventive and creative ways. And it's just it's so tense watching it, and you're just like, you're waiting for the next explosion. It's very inventive, very creative, incredibly well executed, and a hell of a lot of fun as well.
Yeah. Well, my sort of favourite was the one just before that where he encounters the guys in the truck and basically takes them all out. Just the way that he goes about that, because you haven't seen anything up until that point, and it's just the way that they filmed that action scene. It was all sort of mid-shot, so therefore he was doing all the action and everything, and it's just completely brutal because it catches you off guard. You think, oh, maybe you'll be able to shoot a couple of the guys, but no, he goes completely to town on these guys, and it's horrific the way that he actually takes them all down, and then obviously that leads into the minefield scene. But jinx, it's brutal in a bit. So.
It's about that kind of unapologeticness of the film, and the violence is really over the top. It's really brutal. And the knife scene when he stabbed the guy in the head near the beginning of the night for the first kill, actually, I was just like, whoa.
Oh, wow. I jumped because it kind of just, so it was very, very silent. And then, as I say, you've seen the trailer, so you know it's going to get a bit crazy. But I just wasn't expecting like a switch to flip, and then all of a sudden it was just kill for the rest of the film. But yeah, that was kind of brutal. I think first kill, and that did sort of make me jump a little bit.
Yeah, I mean that's a film as well. He's not got this noble cause. He's just wanted his gold back. They're Nazis. They're also insinuating that they've been raping these women as well, and it's just a very. There's no depth to the film. I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just a case of all these guys are Nazis. There's no noble causes here. The guy just wants his gold and be left alone, but he's going to murder every single Nazi that has crossed his path in the meantime. And if anybody's watching a film going, I think that Nazi had a bit of a hard time there, they're going to watch a film and think, and feel sorry for the Nazis getting their heads exploded and knives in the face and ran over by tanks and all sorts,
So, we've obviously talked about the protagonist here, who obviously is a single figure, but what about the bad guys? What about the Nazis in this? What did you think?
I thought the main guy, what was his name again, Mary?
Bruno, played by Axel Hennie.
Yeah, he was so good. He just dripped absolute malice, and it was just detestable. It just looked detestable. He just looked evil.
Yeah.
And again, it's that way. There's no depth to the characters. There's no try to understand. There's no complex character study here. It's just this guy's the embodiment, really, of evil. He's wee sniper, next in command guy. He was just a horrible, slimy, disgusting person, and the others were just cannon fodder, and I was all there for it.
Yeah.
I feel like you don't need an explanation, right? They're Nazis, and therefore you're going to root for whoever is working against them. I thought that Axel Hennie was great. I love that. There were so many times where he was just staring at him as if like he was looking right through him, and he had this look on his face that was really quite dangerous. I can't really explain it. And then you've got Wolf, played by, is it Jack Doolan, who's just this really obvious piece of shit. Like, he's, you know, raping those women. He's he's got the tank gun, shooting at an old man in his dug. Like, how dare you? He's just this really obvious, like, horrible person. And the dynamic between the two works really well, because they're obviously pushing these sort of younger soldiers into, you know, you go and test where the mines are, and they're horrible even to their own kind, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I thought they were very, very plausible villains, but for very different reasons.
Yeah, and it's that way. It's like, as well as you said earlier, John, you've got the women characters, and they're there to kind of tell the story in a way they kind of fill in some exposition. And again, just that very simple, straightforward plot technique. There's nothing wasted in this film. Everything serves a purpose. Nothing's just shoehorned in to pad it out. Nothing is wasted. Everything is used. Their involvement was great. I can't remember the woman's name. Her performance was excellent as well.
Yeah. The only sort of Nazi that had any sort of backstory was the main one, Bruno. He had a bit of self-awareness about him, because if you think about it, at any point they could have walked away after they lost maybe like half their troop, but they had to keep going. And he gave a very good explanation, because he said, you know, when this war's over, we're not just going to be able to go back home, you know, we're completely fucked. It's basically, we're the bad guys here, you know. It's like the Mitchell and Webb sketch where they're standing about wearing the Nazi uniforms, you know, we've got skull in our uniform, you know, are we the bad guys? So he's aware that he's not going to have any sort of post-war activities. He's going to get, you know, put up against a wall and shot. So he's trying to find a way out, and that the gold for him and tangentially for the rest of the guys is their way out, their way of actually getting away from it. So there is a wee bit of a backstory, but not too much, so that, like I say, it doesn't go into any depth with these characters, because it doesn't need to. It focuses on the main idea that it's a revenge tale, and it's not a revenge tale for any moral reasons. It's just he wants his stuff back, you know, so he can get his money or whatever. So yeah, it works really, really well. So what else did you like about this film? You've obviously mentioned the cinematography, Simi, as well, and the fact that it wasn't an expensive film. Do you think more money would have made any difference, or do you think it was just right the way it was?
For me, it was just right, exactly how it was. It was just right how it was. This isn't a film that needs remade with a bigger budget of that. This is a filmmaker that has used what resources he has to deliver the best film he could on the budget he had. And yeah, it's not as if it's some of the special effects are like groundbreaking as the bit towards the end. It gets away with that because of how over the top it is. It's not like you're watching a bit at the end, not to spoil anything, but you can see where the CGI is and the practical effects and that. You're not like, it doesn't take you out of the film either, because it's so extreme how it's happening. But the violence is, I wouldn't say it's necessarily realistic as such, but it doesn't look stupid. It doesn't look stupid, you know.
Yeah, it doesn't break the laws of physics, does it?
No, it's not Fast 9.
Yes.
Fast 10's fine, but Fast 9 not so much.
Apparently the budget for the film was €6 million, which is about
a bargain at the price.
About £5.5 million. So yeah, you can see that they've sort of stretched every penny in the budget as well. So yeah, I think it's quite an achievement for the director and everybody involved with it. So yeah. So anything else you'd like to mention while we're still on the subject?
I just really like the chapters because it gave it that sort of, I know I've said kind of Tarantino-esque, but the one that was just called Kill 'Em All. I was like, oh, fuck yeah, where is this going now? Like, this is so good. So I really like that. And I also like, it's like that kind of throat singing that was used throughout, because to me that's quite a masculine, quite testosterone thing. It's very deep, it's very guttural, and it was used sparingly, but I thought it worked really well for the type of film that it is, that obviously he is a sort of like almost kind of hyper masculine version of a soldier or whatever you want to call it. So I thought that worked really well But yeah, the chapter titles in particular gave me a few chuckles, and as I say, Kill 'Em All stands out as being my favourite.
Yeah, aye. And the way that they actually displayed the titles as well for the chapters, it started off quite clear, and then as it got to like the 5th and 6th, it was like almost like covered in blood and stuff like that. So
yeah. I had that old gunslinger western feel to it as well that really helped. That white hats, black hats.
Yeah, it's not a million miles away from a spaghetti western, to be perfectly honest.
So that's what I was even thinking, the cinematography, because obviously, it's quite washed out, and as they've explained, the Nazis have basically burned everything in Finland. So quite often it's just him and one other person, almost like brackets at the edge of the screen, and that's very Western. It's literally a face-off or whatever you want to call it. So I really like that element of it, as well as that obviously it's an action film, it's a sort of World War II film as well, but yeah, there was lots of elements of it that you were like, this feels like an old-fashioned cowboy film. It was really well done.
Yeah, even down to the sort of the sparse landscape.
Yeah,
sort of the scrubland, and it's almost like say a washed out desert landscape as well. So and making good use of smoke and all that sort of stuff, like say when the minefields started to go up.
And that's the thing that really kind of intrigued me and was really tense for me when the film started, was where's he going to hide?
Yeah.
That was my thought as well, because there was no trees left.
Yeah, I'm like, there's just open land. They've all got machine guns. He has nothing. How's he going to get out of this? Ingenious creativity.
Yeah, I know. Although it is one of these films that, if it actually followed any sort of logic, it would be finished in about 2 minutes. Yeah. Because at the very start of it, the second in command, I can't remember the guy's name. Wolf, did you say his name was? Yeah. He was going to shoot him. So if he'd shot him, that'd have been it. They'd have got the golden left, But obviously the story doesn't dictate that to us. They basically want the horrors to unfold afterwards. But I always like looking at these things. If you did actually, they've worked their way across Finland, killing and raping anything that they've found, and yet with this old guy, they say, just let him go. He's going to be dead in a minute anyway, Well,
that's the thing. They do know he's going to come across those Nazis further up the road.
Yeah.
And the landmines as well, potentially.
Yeah. So.
They
knew. I think almost he got a kick out of the fact that he knew he was walking towards a certain death. When you hear the gunfire originally, that's the guy kind of like turns around and smirks. Because he knows that that's him taken care of. Then there's a silence, and there's more gunfire, and he's like, hold on a minute. What's going on here? So yeah, I get what you mean, that whole kind of like carefully just shot him type thing, but it was almost it was more evil that he's like, you know what? Leave him. That's too quick a death for him type thing. Don't wish to do it. But he is actually loosely inspired by a real guy.
Oh well.
What?
Didn't know that.
He's a Finnish sniper. And,
are you serious?
Yeah.
Well, I need to look this up. That sounds incredible.
Yeah, I'm not going to try and pronounce the guy's name, but his nickname was the White Death.
Wow. Do you remember you guys told me Finland didn't exist?
Oh yeah, that's right. It doesn't exist. I forgot about that.
Yep, only in films.
Well, have you noticed there's nothing in Finland?
Yeah, just scorched earth. Yeah, nothing at all.
That's us lost our Finnish audience now. That's brilliant. Yep.
Well,
honestly, that's all I could think of. Obviously, they weren't speaking Finnish right up until the sort of very end, but all I could think of during this was, John and Simmy told me Finland didn't exist.
Dear. So, having talked about it for a wee while now, would you both recommend this? I kind of think I know what the answer to this is anyway, but would you both recommend this film?
I've been telling everybody and anybody to watch this film.
Oh,
so if you've been accosted in the street by Simmy telling you to watch Sisu, you know why.
I'm just walking with my placards and the poster.
Ask me about Sisu.
Trying to usher people into the cinema. I had one guy come up to me and say his granddad and that in the war, and it was a bit insensitive, so he's not going to go and see it. I say guy, it was maybe, but
honestly, with you, I don't even know if you're joking half the time. I'm just like, did you? Yeah, did that happen in the forge?
Okay, so we can take that pretty much as a recommendation from all three of us. Yeah, spot on. I think it was right up there, and I know it's a wee bit early to say, but in our end of year lists, I suspect it will be featured. I'll be surprised if I see 10 better films.
Yeah, I can't see it
the
being
remainder of the
knocked
year,
out of
yeah,
the top 10.
No, it's definitely going to be that. Excellent. So now we move on to another action film, John Wick Chapter 4.
Have you given any thought to where this ends? The table will never stop. You know this. No one, not even you, can kill everyone.
You ready, John?
Yeah.
Again, directed by Chad Stahelski, features the one and only Keanu Reeves. This time he's joined by Donnie Yen, Bill Skarsgård. Also, Scott Adkins is in it as well. Very funny turn from him, and returning characters such as Lawrence Fishburne. One of the final roles for Lance Reddick on screen, and Ian McShane as well. The story this time, it basically follows on straight from the end of John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum, where, and I'm going to spoil the end of the film for you if you haven't seen it. And you haven't seen it, why are you listening to a review about the fourth film? Really, come on, you need to.
It's on them.
Yeah, you need to have a good long look at yourself. That's what you need to do. Or as I was always told when I was young, you need to have your word with yourself, son. So get on with it. Basically, at the end of Chapter 3, John Wick is shot and falls off the top of the Continental Hotel building in New York and is assumed dead, although the body is never found. He is actually taken away by the Bowery King and his guys, and the fourth film starts off with John Wick trying to exact vengeance on the High Table. Now, this film then takes him to Morocco, where he meets up with one of the elders of the High Table. At this point, he is still excommunicado when they figure out that he's still alive. And what comes to pass is there's a new character called the Marquis, who is played by Bill Skarsgård, this quite effete man who is pushing basically to be in charge of everything. He takes the Continental away from Winston, makes the hotel excommunicado, destroys it at one point, and basically starts going after it, basically looks to find and kill John Wick. Now, John Wick, what he does is he seeks refuge in Osaka at the Continental there. Some of his old friends are there, and from there, basically death and destruction follows him. Now, this is a very different film from the first one. A lot of similar action to it in terms of the way that action staged. It's very inventive, everything. But this film is 1 minute short, or no, not 1 minute, 11 minutes short of 3 hours, which is a hell of a long time for an action film. And I'll be interested to find out whether you think it actually sustains at running time. So I shall come to you first, Thomas, on this one. Initial thoughts on Jonathan coming back for a fourth time?
Well, the first film is one of my favourite action films of the last 10, 20 years. Again, simple plot. Man's dog dies, goes on a revenge mission. What can go wrong? My problems with the films, at the time we got to the third one, the story got really convoluted. I hadn't a clue what was going on, which in these kind of films is fine if the story wasn't so front and centre at that point, and it was taking about the film a lot, trying to figure out who all these different characters were, and all this depth to the world that it created. It kind of lost me. So when the fourth one came out, and it was going to be, as you said, almost 3 hours long, I was very sceptical to how they were going to pull it off, and I was thankfully surprised that they managed to do it. We started a lot of the lore and the mythology of the film, but I didn't feel it was in your face as much. And the action was incredible, and it did keep me hooked for the near 3 hours.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Mary?
Yeah, I must admit, I went into this, to be quite honest, not remembering fully what had happened in the third one. I just knew that I didn't like it as much as the previous ones. Obviously, I knew he was meant to be dead, but so I was kind of thinking, is it, because they said it was going to be the last one, so I was like, how are they going to wrap this up? Is this going to be, then I saw the runtime and I was like, fuck, I don't think, without making me sound thick, I don't think I can keep up with this for that amount of time. If they introduce more characters or there's more sort of elements to the high table, all this sort of thing, I didn't think it was going to be for me. However, very pleasantly surprised. I think it's one of the strongest action films I've seen in a long time. And 3 hours, I thought it flew in. I thought it was great.
Yeah, same. I mean, I'm now at an age where I have to consider toilet breaks and stuff like that, and I don't like to do that during films because of FOMO. You know, I'm almost assured that whenever I walk out, something monumental will happen, and I'll miss it, and I'll come back in, and I'll be like, "What the fuck just happened? Why are those two fighting together now? You know, why is it completely changed?" So you have to time it and prepare. I don't mean like going to training or anything like 2 weeks before or anything like that, but you just have to be aware that it's a long running time. In preparation for these films, I watched the first 3 again, like maybe 2 or 3 days before it, watched one a day. And what I found was that the consistency was right up there for all 3 of them in terms of the invention of the action scenes and everything. And that followed through into the 4th film quite nicely. It was a bit of a change of pace, the 4th film, in that it didn't start with an action scene. It started quite quietly. It was his recuperation. It took its time, which it kind of had to, because he's not Superman. You know, he's flesh and bone, and if something happens to him, then he's going to take time to recover. And, you know, falling off a building kind of necessitates you take a couple of days off to recuperate, things like that.
Now, see, if only his employer had glued the window shut.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's great Danko at best.
Yeah. You've got to remember it was his employer that shot him. And
No, that's true. That is true.
So, yeah. So, yes, I thought that it didn't feel like a 3-hour film at all. Really enjoyed it. It was quick enough that you didn't get bored at any point. I enjoyed all the action within it, and it still moved at a fair pace. And because, especially films 2 and 3, they had introduced an awful lot of lore of the world of the assassins, they didn't add really anything to that. They didn't need to, because there was enough there which formed the background. And now there's a new Continental, but you know there's Continentals dotted all over the world, so that's not something new. You know that he's had this like very sort of successful past all over the world killing people, so he is well known in all these places, and he's made a lot of friends, which obviously informs it all as well. So yeah, I got it right from the start, and I just, because you're familiar with the previous stories, you can just sit back and go, yeah, it's good. Somebody coming into it completely blind, watching 4 and nothing else, will just be going, what the hell's going on for the first like 45 minutes? They won't have a clue, because, like I say, there's a slow start to it, and this is recuperation before he actually goes and does something. So you're kind of going, yep, what's going on here? It's a wee bit strange. So just dive into the characters themselves. Obviously, they've introduced a new bad guy this time, Bill Skarsgård, who obviously was very, very creepy as Pennywise. Now, this performance for me was a little bit more low-key, but still fairly effective. What did you guys think of him as the main baddie in these proceedings?
Yeah, I liked him. Not my favourite performance by him, not my favourite bad guy in these films either, to be fair, but it's like we did another European villain for John Wick to go up against here.
Vincent Cassel must have been busy.
Well, it's not problematic, but I liked his performance because it was understated, but it was still quite hammy in a scenery chewing type way, and it just basically played up to the fact that I am this evil European billionaire villain type, James Bond-esque villain almost. And yeah, I liked it. It's just my only thing I suppose was John Wick films are almost like a computer game as well. and he was kind of like the final boss, but you never heard of him through this film. For
Hmm.
me, that was the only little thing I felt. I think it'd be good if it was we were building up to this final villain, which clearly they were in one way. But for me, just get the character introduced in the last film, you kind of like, right, cool. The stakes, that's nothing to do with performance, to be fair. But I just didn't really feel that it was this arch nemesis of John Wick in a way. But I'm kind of diverting a wee bit. But the performance wise, yeah, like it was just what you want from your villains like that. Nice suit.
Yeah.
It had a miniature. It had miniature models as well. I mean, all good European villains should stand over European miniatures at some point.
Oh dear. I mean, I'm going to disagree slightly because I don't think it was overly hammy, because I think the film the film franchise in general leans into hyperbole quite a lot, right? I mean, he literally fell off a building and survived. So I'm going to forgive some of the scenery chewing. But I like the fact that he was a contrast to so many of the characters have encountered, not just in terms of personality, but also just in terms of the way that he dressed, because albeit he was suited and booted, it was maybe like a suit with like sequins down it, or like, you know, he'd like feathers involved at one point, or everything's all very like color coded and it's very like ostentatious. It's just the contrast to this seemingly anonymous John Wick who's cutting about in the black suit, right? So I actually did really like it. A complete change to, I know John, you and I had talked about him in Barbarian, and that was a very quiet, very understated performance where you were like, oh fuck, what's he going to do next? Whereas in this one, he, you know, it was all, it would put, what do you call him, Jim Carrey's the Riddler to shame at times. But I actually quite like that. I thought it really worked as a nice contrast to the seriousness, the heaviness, the sort of sobriety of the rest of it. And here he is cutting about in peacock feathers and diamonds. I was like, yeah, okay, I'm okay with this.
Yeah, having high-level meetings at pony events and all sorts of things, yeah.
I did like the fact his character's got the marquee. It sounds like a villain.
Yeah. There was an awful lot of velvet on display as well at one point. So wasn't it? And obviously, like tables full of food, and he eats like two things and then just walks away from it. And obviously, you're saying, "What did the henchman get all the leftovers or something?" You know.
Nice. That would be homeless.
So in contrast to that, obviously we have Keanu Reeves returning in the title role, which was actually I found out a wee fact about that. John Wick is actually the grandfather of the writer of the film. So that's where they got the name from. Anyway, right. So he's back again. Now, he is a character that's very similar to the main character in Sisu. I think he had something like 45 words or something he spoke. There was very, very little dialogue, or 45 lines, I think it was, of dialogue they had. He actually get some cut out because he felt it was too much in there. It's very much the Steve McQueen school of acting, in that he used to go through scripts and just wipe out lines and just say, no, I'm not going to say that, I'm not going to say that. It was all done through actions. It was all done through looks rather than actually having to emote. And, you know, you're leaving a certain amount up to the audience about it. So was he as good? Was he better? Was he worse than we've seen him in the previous ones? What do you think, Mary? Stop fiddling your screen.
No, sorry. Do you know what it is? My screen keeps freezing, and the only way I can get it to reset is if I put my laptop down the back. Sorry. Anyways, I'm going to float this out there. I don't think Keanu Reeves is a very good actor. And I think the delivery of his lines in the John Wick franchise, some of it is pretty fucking terrible. So I'm okay with him saying the bare minimum. I'd rather watch him, you know, kick people's ass than have him, you know, emote or whatever. I think that as a character, he really works in the same way that the main character of Sisu works, in the sense that we don't need him to tell us his whole life story. We don't need him to narrate what he's doing. We just want to see him do, because that's literally why you go to these films, right? Because it's an action film. So I think that whilst I'm not Keanu Reeves' biggest fan, I think his approach to this character certainly works, and it pays off. I think he's a character that you want to see more of. Although, having said that, I'm quite glad that they're saying, okay, this is the fourth one. It's done, because I don't know where else they could take him, but that's a conversation for maybe later on. But I think he's good at what he does, but he doesn't need to say anymore because his delivery is quite wonderful.
I wouldn't disagree with you over his delivery. He's got a very stilted sort of acting style anyway, which does him no harm a lot of the time. He's
I think he's
good.
doing all right.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's not crying into his millions because I've just said I think his line delivery is pretty terrible.
Yeah,
I'm sure that's not going to happen. I just think that for me, I don't need a character like that, as I say, to constantly be narrating what they're doing or, you know, verbalizing deep emotions. I do just want to go and see you kill people. That's pretty much it.
I don't think he's showing his age, though.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Him and Paul Rudd clearly bath in the same virgin blood every night, and that's why they both look so beautiful, right?
They bought Mel Gibson.
Yeah, the trade in monkey glands has certainly increased over the last 10 years or so, hasn't it? Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. He's only 6 years younger than our man from Sisu, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Is he?
It's crazy, yeah.
And I won't lie, you would think there was decades between them, wouldn't you?
We talk about that kind of older action style type thing. It's guys pushing 60. And yeah, we all grew up with you so see them like visibly age over the years, but you're watching this film going, and this guy's only 60 and he's still kicking ass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It's impressive the amount of work that he puts in to his performance, and he's obviously totally dedicated to it. And he's said that on a number of occasions that he enjoys doing these films and he enjoys the preparation. Doing the work because it all shows on screen. They can do an awful lot because they've got a lead that they can show doing all this stuff without the need of like shooting them from behind and all this. There are some stunt performers in it, and he has said that he's been very vocal about the fact that there are some things that he cannot do, and he's not allowed to do. Yeah, like fall off a building. Yeah, although I'm sure he would want to give it a go.
I don't give Tom Cruise ideas, but it's that kind of thing. It gives that authenticity as well when you see an actor doing a lot of their own stunts, which I think also helps you be in the film, especially as an older actor as well, because you're like, oh.
It gives him a vulnerability though as a character as well, because he is older and he has obviously the character has been damaged by, you know, this fall from a great height, etc. So there is that vulnerability there. But some of the, you know, the fight choreography in this, I mean, it's like ballet. Like everyone has like the exact, you know, right place to put their hand at this time, and you can see it's him. So there is absolutely an authenticity in there, and there's no denying that's something he's clearly very passionate about. So, like I said, I'm quite happy for him to focus on, you know, killing people or doing whatever. I don't need him to narrate everything for me, because just watching how he moves and his physicality, and he shows signs of injury as well, which I think is really realistic, because so often in these films when people get, you know, shot or beaten up or whatever, they just walk away as if nothing'd ever happened. But he shows sign of injury, which I think is quite an interesting element of the character as well.
His walk is very unique in the film. He walks a very specific way. It's almost, it goes back to saying about the injuries there. He's walking like a guy who's been had a bit of a kicking, and he's struggling to walk, and it's painful to do so, but he can't do anything else. He has to keep going.
Mm-hmm. Well, for some actors, the walk is the first thing that they try to get right, to get into the character. John Travolta was very famous for doing that. If he got the way that the character moved first, then that was his starting point for actually going into it. Obviously, it didn't help with like some of the films that he did. But, you know, early on, obviously, he was very famous for, I mean, Saturday Night Fever, for instance, where the opening scene of that, it was all about the attitude of the character. And here, you're right. He looks, and when you see him walking, he looks as if he's in pain all the time. It's almost like a struggle for him to actually just walk in a straight line, because he's been hit so many times in the legs and the hip and everything like that. So yeah. So moving on from there, obviously what everybody goes to see these films for is the action scenes themselves. This is on a completely different level, obviously, to Sisu. It's a completely different type of film. It cost $100 million to make, which is, I think the way that it's worked is that the budget has roughly doubled with each film. So it started off, it was only like $15 million or something that's spent on the first film, and obviously really stretched it. Partly that was to do with the fact that there were so many action scenes, but the director was a former stuntman and stunt coordinator. So he knew how to set these action scenes up and things like that. Do you think the action scenes were on a par with previous films, or do you think they were what they were hoping for, as in another step above, as in it was that wee bit more to the action?
For me, it was, like I said, I wasn't the biggest fan of the third film, and I can't really remember a lot of the set pieces in it.
The horse. He was
Yeah,
on the
that's
horse.
that's all I really remember, the horse.
Yeah.
And I'm the whole time thinking, why isn't he shooting the horse?
I'm so glad that we got that insight into your mind.
Yeah, fuck's sake, Timmy. Yeah.
But no, with this, it's Mary, you had the nail on the head with the idea of kind of ballet. It's so well choreographed, and it's so fun to watch. It's quite violent, obviously, but it's not got the same brutality. Sisu, for example, 500 people get shot in the film, and it's like, it's not a realistic depiction of gun violence, but it is some cracking set pieces, over the top. You know, it's not a documentary. The scene with the Arc de Triomphe was brilliant, just because it was so tense, and you're just watching it thinking, at that, because it was just so fast paced as well. These cars flying past them. And if anybody's actually ever been there, that's a horrendous roundabout. It's absolute chaos. It's mental. For me, the set pieces did kick up a gear, a way that it was a bit daft that everybody was bulletproof at one point. So it was almost like they're all like shooting each other with like airsoft guns. The bullets just bouncing off each other because they were literally bulletproof suits. And I'm like, it's still cool though.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely think this is. I think it was almost like the perfect goodbye. I think they really went all out in terms of what they had to offer. I loved the fight sequence in the Osaka Continental. I think I tried to work out how long that went on for, because it was. I mean, they literally went through room, just, you know, as you say, kicking the shit out of each other. He gets the nunchucks out, all this sort of thing. But it was, I could watch that like over and over again, just a scene on its own. It was so perfect and so well done. The Arc de Triomphe scene, as you said, traffic dodging was making me feel physically sick, because I was like, someone's going to get run over here, as if that was, you know, the most important thing that was going to happen. But I think for me, the standout was the overhead shot where he's going through the room with the devil's breath ammo, and you're literally just watching that, like almost like a flamethrower just like shoot across the room, and you've got those really beautiful, you know, almost making it look like a sort of doll's house type of thing as he weaves through those rooms. That to me was one of the most stunning set pieces I've ever seen, never mind in this franchise, just ever. It was so well done, and again, just loaded with tension. Although you kind of have these assumptions that he's going to make it to the end of the film one way or another, I don't think that ever takes away from the tension that you feel when you're watching these scenes.
No, definitely not. The overhead one was very sort of reminiscent of a game. It was that kind of idea, the overhead shot, very like an action game, I thought, but it worked superbly well. It was just very, very good. I mean, there was so many good action scenes. The Arc de Triomphe one, I was just sitting there going, I've never seen anything like this in my life. That's unbelievable. And if you just think about it purely on a technical level, how the hell did they manage to pull it off?
So this is what I wanted to know. Do you think that was all stunt drivers, or was that like legitimate?
Be,
we've set up a wee sign saying Keanu Reeves is going to be here, but drive normally as you would.
Well, there was the director was interviewed specifically about that sequence, and they spent like it was a good couple of months setting it up, and even when they set it up, they didn't know if it was going to be successful, just because of the variables, just so many cars and so many things that could go wrong. Actually, on the nights that they did, and obviously there was night shoots and all that as well, which adds extra sort of complexity into it as well. But yeah, it was absolutely amazing. I did like the scene on the steps up to the Sacré-Cœur.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He's you know, and it's just this relentless killing guys and like throwing them down and all that, and then when he gets up almost to the top and gets knocked away back down to the bottom, the whole cinema I was with were all just burst out laughing when he tumbled all the way back down, and I was just thinking,
there was a couple of bits watching that scene. I thought my heart sunk when he started rolling back down, but a couple of times I thought, you could have stopped yourself there, but it's almost, you can actually see the stuntman push himself towards the steps. Just thought, Okay. Again, no,
Yep.
no, you kind of like, it just got to a wee teeny bit. I was like, you can clearly say you're pushing yourself to get that extra step.
I do feel like, though, like I said, these are all very like over the top. These films, I do think you suspend some sort of disbelief on it because you just it's like the world's worst game of it's like the world's worst game of snake and ladders.
I think at the time I've got to I'm on the stairs. I have suspended quite a lot of disbelief in the film.
Yeah.
No, and that's completely fair. I know that will always stay in my head that there's 222 stairs to the top of Sakakura, but you're right. I think every time he got so far and he plummeted back down, you were just like, fuck's sake.
It wasn't even the idea of it, because I'm thinking of the momentum stuff, but there was a couple of scenes you could see the stuntman, you could see him kind of look like it was slowing down, it would push yourself to get the extra momentum. I'm like, That was
Are you honestly going to put in a complaint and say, I saw you push yourself? 2 stars.
For me, it was almost like seeing the boom mic in the shot.
No, I get you.
That's what it was kind of like. It wasn't a kind of case of the disbelief of the idea that it would fall down all these steps. It was the movie. It was like seeing the boom mic. It took me out of the film slightly.
So, what did you think of the fact that the newer characters that were introduced? Obviously, we had a major one in the Donnie Yen character playing a blind martial arts expert again. I mean, geez, oh man, he's cornered the market in that one, hasn't he? But there was also smaller parts. Obviously, was it Clancy Brown was in it as well?
Yes.
And previously I mentioned Scott Adkins as well. Now, Scott Adkins sequences were brilliant with him, and I noticed there wasn't any complaints about him wearing a fat suit. Compared to more serious films that were out there, he seemed to have got away with it quite easily. What did you think?
I didn't know who he was.
No,
so I honestly thought when he was doing the fight scenes, I was like, oh my god, that guy can really move. I actually feel so embarrassed. And I also thought Donnie Yen was blind, because all I've ever seen him play was blind characters. So
he's actually committed to his role. He actually blinded himself.
I know, and part of me was thinking, surely they didn't have a blind man do all of this, because this seems very dangerous, and that just shows you how stupid I am when it comes to these films. But I do think that
there's no blind men in Finland either.
Honestly, I do think that they were introduced well, they were used well. It wasn't like, oh fuck, they're piling extra characters on. They were there to push the narrative forward. So in that sense, when they were introduced, it wasn't like, oh shit, I'm going to have to remember who they are later, or who are they in relation to X, Y, and Z. I thought they were, for the time that especially Scott Adkins' character was there for a sort of shorter period of time, they were there to move the plot along. It seemed like more good fun. It felt like they were having good fun in the roles, and actually I have no objections to stuff like that when it does feel like it's further in the plot as opposed to just adding more layers on for the sake of adding more layers on.
Yeah, I particularly liked the Donnie Yen one because it added another dimension to the action scenes, because they showed in quite great detail the way that he was able to move around and the way that he used objects and everything, sort of almost like like sonar, if you like, in order to figure out where he was and where everybody was, and obviously using his heightened senses. It was very, very well done. And he was almost like, he was a very reluctant assassin. It's like, he almost got out and then he pulled him back in again for one last job, that kind of thing. Thought he was excellent in it. It was a nice change of pace for a character as well, because even though he was on the other side of it, he was very sympathetic, because there was obviously they'd introduce elements to us as to why he was brought in to hunt down John Wick and obviously eventually try and kill him. And it didn't make him out to be this just sort of generic bad guy. Whereas in previous films, sort of the bad guy has just been a bad guy. It's just, and it doesn't work as well, because you just need sort of shades, and you need, shades, I see what I did there. No, Donnie Yen were shades. Oh, wow, But yes, it did work very, very well. So, as Mary has pointed out already, this is quite possibly the last film, the last John Wick film.
Yeah.
But it's obviously not the end of the the John Wick universe.
No,
Because-
not the word again.
There's the long-touted television series based around the Continental, which Ian McShane has been reported to have been involved in one form or another. And there is also the spin-off film Ballerina as well, which is going to focus on basically the people within John Wick's past, because not so much in this film, but in the third film there was a big sequence. It was Angelica Houston's character, and it was all his family and everything, and they ran like this dance school and all that, as well as all the fight training and everything. So there's going to be an Ana de Armas starring film with that, which I'm quite looking forward to, because she's really building herself quite a reputation for
she's great.
action films. Ghosted was an okay film, but she was very good in it. The action scenes were very good in it, obviously, and she was in the last Bond film as well, in a very memorable 15-20 minute sequence. So the future is there, but is it a good thing? Should we hope that they would just stop?
It's a tough one, because always willing to kind of give you things a chance. It'd be nice to see some of the original stuff, like John Wick, for example, rather than try to just kind of cash in that, because I don't really think the Wick verse is something we need. Like, I think the film, for me, the first one's the best one, because it's a very simple story. Yeah, it kind of hints at this overarching criminal world, but as I said, the time I got to 3, I was like, I don't even care who anybody is anymore. I have no idea what's going on. I was pleasantly surprised with the 4th one that I managed to care again, and the new characters are good. I mean, I'll watch them, I'll give them a chance, especially the films. Is it something we don't need? No, personally. But they've also kind of like tried to tie in other films, haven't they? Out of the John Wick universe, like Nobody, and what was that one with the hotel? It was a film with the hotel where the hitman go to.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
I can't remember what that was called, but I know exactly the film you mean.
Yeah, that was very. I felt like a John Wick spin-off in some ways.
Do you think it was deliberate then that one of the characters in John Wick 4 was called Nobody? As if that's a sort of like a code name for a character?
Personally, I think it's probably just a coincidence, and Nobody's a very. I mean, there's a Mr. Nobody in the Fast films as well.
Oh, it could all be joined up.
Oh, fucking hell.
I'm quite happy to see Fast and the Furious film crossed over with John Wick.
Don't pitch them any more fucking ideas. I swear to God, the last time we spoke about this and you were talking about something in space, I swear that's going to happen at some point as well.
Well, interesting enough, you were saying where does John Wick go for here? I think space would be the next logical step. Unfortunately, so if there's no more John Wick films, that's good, because I idea like Keanu Reeves floating towards like a space station with a gun.
Oh God, I don't know. I mean, I would potentially watch the Continental Hotel series. I think I would. I think that'd be something I'd enjoy. Do I need to expand it out further than that? I need more spin-offs with side catches, stuff like that. Probably not. I feel like it's ended on as well a note as it possibly can. I thought 4 was a really strong film after the disappointment of 3. I don't feel like I need the extra stuff. As I say, I'll probably watch the Continental series just out of curiosity to see what it's like. But I don't need any more. I don't feel like there's a John Wick shaped hole in my life.
Did you stay after the credits?
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
This is an amateur hour, Sammy.
It's not something I've done, but for telling me, but yeah, so that obviously sets up something as well. And just
that sets up more of a spin-off as well, really, doesn't it? More than John Wick 5. Yep.
Shared universe, the Wickverse.
I kind of suspect that it's not the end of John Wick or Keanu Reeves' involvement in this. There was without giving anything away, there are a couple of small hints in the closing scenes of the film that basically says there could be more. There could quite easily be more here. And I think it was put there deliberately just so there's a door open for them to maybe do some more if they need to. And they've got a plausible way of explaining it. But then again, if it doesn't happen, then it's not really lost on anybody. It's still a sort of complete film in its own right. doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not like the current trend of films not ending. You have to wait for the second part of it that's going to come in 3 years' time or whatever, you know. So,
which is how Fast 10 ends.
yep. And
Um,
the Spider-Verse, the Spider-Man animated film, that's part
I've
one
not
of
seen
2.
that.
And we've already had that with June as well. So
Yeah, does anybody really care about June Part 2? Because
I do. I really enjoyed the first part.
I
It was
enjoyed
a
the
very
first
good
one.
film. Yeah,
Yeah, I
it just proves it was ages ago it came out.
I know. Yeah. And it didn't come out. It barely came out in cinemas. Remember, because it was during lockdown. It came out on
That's
HBO
right.
before anything else. So, aye.
That's right.
So, I think we've thoroughly covered the John Wickiverse. So,
I hate the word. I hate calling it that now as well. I hate it.
Well, we're going to do the Moviescramble verse and Gareth coming on.
yes,
The
yeah.
Moviescramble.
Mhm.
That's
But
right.
the Scramble verse. But a wee bit of trivia. You're talking about the Keanu Reeves and this guy being a stuntman. He actually was Keanu Reeves' stuntman, a stunt double in earlier films. Not earlier John Wick films, but earlier films they'd worked on together. And he was also Brandon Lee's stunt double in The Crow and stood in for him during reshoots.
Yeah, unfortunate reshoots, I think.
Yeah,
you could
unfortunate
probably call
reshoots.
it. Yeah, oh, yeah. Bet he was glad
And
to
if
take
you,
a day off when they did one scene. Yeah,
if you also like a wee bit of connection between Sisu and John Wick as well, Scott Adkins and Jack Doolan both starred in Green Street 3.
Wait, there's a Green Street 3.
Yeah,
I didn't even know there was a second one, in fairness.
I've not seen 3. I've seen 2. It's not great. But 3, yeah, there's a third one.
yeah. These films don't get good until like the 7th or 8th one. So then you start getting interested,
That's
isn't
what
it?
really hits its stride when you get Green Street in space.
Mhm.
Oh, dear.
So overall, would you recommend John Wick in the same way that you would recommend Sisu, or is it? Well, I'll put it this way: what film did you prefer of the
I
two?
prefer Sisu. I prefer Sisu, but it's that kind of way. If you've seen the first 3 John Wick films, I'm going to recommend it to you because even if the third one you didn't like, watch the fourth one. If you haven't seen any John Wick films, I'd recommend watching the first one. But if you didn't watch anything else, I think you'd be okay personally.
Mhm.
I really enjoyed the fourth one. I did, but if somebody hasn't seen any of them, and you're saying to them, "There's 4 films, and the last one's about 2 days long," they might go, "Yeah, I'm just going to watch Sisu and Stay. It's 90 minutes."
Yeah, yep, in and out without needing a trip to the bathroom. Yeah. I can't go over that.
I would recommend it. Well, I'm that kind of way as well. It's like,
So, sorry, I think we've broken Mary.
Sorry, it's just because you said in and out without needing a trip to the bathroom. I forgot what we were talking about.
Oh, for goodness sake. Jeez, oh, where's your mind?
I'm starting to be quite good at finding a lull in a film, and I'm like, "That big action scene's just happened. The talking should run and back.
Yeah.
If I miss anything, no. There's been times I have missed stuff. I'm like, bastard, I have no idea what's going on. But I'm getting quite good at sensing the structure of the film. Sisu, I didn't move.
Yeah, no, in fairness. And you don't need to either. I think it's tough because I really enjoyed John Wick 4 and I came out of the cinema feeling absolutely elated that it finished on such a high note, and there's so many different parts that I absolutely loved. Like even the wee bit where he trained the dog just to bite folk in the balls. Like I absolutely loved that. I think if you want like a sort of if you want the big budget sort of takes its time with some character stuff and there's huge set pieces, then absolutely John Wick 4 is your gal. But if you want just like 90 minutes of absolute fucking chaos, then Sisu. I think I recommend them both equally. I got equal enjoyment out of both of these films.
Yeah, it was a bit of a loaded question, unfortunately, because obviously Sisu is a one-off, whereas John Wick 4 has the 3
or
films
is
to build
it?
on.
Well, there is talk of a sequel.
No, I was being sarcastic. Are you being real?
What is
See,
it going
that
to
just
be?
ruins
Taking
it.
part in the Korean War or something?
Well, no, there's talk of a sequel. Then they'll probably have the Sisu-verse and it'll cross over with Inglourious Basterds or something.
Yeah. Do you think the second film will be him, like, just riding into Berlin on his horse just to tackle the last of them?
Yeah.
Find the bunker and empty it out.
Yeah, it just goes after Hitler. Then
The
fight
real
Scott.
Hitler, not the pretend one that they had left in the bunker. It's the
You
one
see
that's
him in Brazil hunting Hitler down.
yeah. Yeah, well, I would recommend it.
Sisu in space.
Yeah. Inevitably, it always goes there, doesn't it?
You see like Hitler and a rocket like flying out of the atmosphere. It looks out and he's at the window like Garfield, just smashing me in.
With his pickaxe, yeah.
You'd watch it. Let's be honest.
Oh, do you know
Well,
the worst thing is?
you'd watch it.
Yeah, you'd watch it. In between your Bigfoot marathon, you'd definitely watch it. Oh, God. I hate that, though, that a film performs well and all of a sudden it just becomes a cash grab. Like, just let it be on its own. It was great fun, so just let it exist and that's it.
Yeah,
see, for me, that was John Wick for me, basically, because I thought the first one was... I mean, when I saw a trailer for John Wick the first time, I wasn't sure if it was a piss take. Because he's like, he killed my dog. And I'm like, is this a real film? Is this a comedy? Is that a spoof? Where's this going? And then the trailer finished and I went, I need to see this film.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love films, and this is where both films have a lot of connections as well. I love films where you mess with the wrong guy. I love films like that. John Wick, they didn't know who it was. And then it takes the car to John Leguizamo's chop shop, and he's like, you have no idea who John Wick is. You know, it's like, you have no idea what you've done. And with this guy as well, with the general talking to the Nazis saying, well, just leave. You've had a lucky escape with this guy, and you're sitting in a tank of machine guns going, eh? What? No, we're going to kill this guy. So I love films like that. You mess with the wrong guy.
Yeah, it's always good, isn't it? Yeah, I would recommend both of them equally. I think they're different areas of the spectrum of action films. They cover some similar ground, but they're very different types of films. You can tell that from the way they were created and the way that with the amount of money it was thrown at both of them as well. But I would like to see Sisu getting a bit more love out there because it's definitely worth it. It's been very well received when people have actually seen it.
This is a film that finds its home on streaming, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So if I put it Netflix or that and somebody's going to watch it, it's going to go on TikTok, it's going to explode, and people are going to be like, you need to see this film, and they're going to be sharing clips of it on social media. Mm-hmm. This is going to get a massive audience once it's a home video, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I mean, if you look at the likes of Nobody, which has been about for 2 years, year and a half, 2 years, and that just hit Netflix about 2-3 months ago, and it was the number one film on Netflix, like for about a month or something, which is totally wild. It's still in the top 10 there, so there's obviously an audience for these films. Yeah, it's done really well because I was flicking through Netflix last night and it came up again, still in the top 10, and I watched a wee bit of it. You know how it shows you the wee preview bit, and it was the bit where he goes in to find out about the tattoo and all that, and the old guy, oh, thank you for your service and all that. So yeah, it's just cracking. I could quite easily watch it again. And that's an in and out one. It's like 90 minutes or so. So yeah, you just don't mess about. So that's it from us with regards to our big comeback pod. As usual, you can find us on the social media channels. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can get in touch with us there, or you can send us an email to podcast@moviescramble.co.uk. You may be the first. That joke never gets old. We are planning to podcast a lot more regularly than we have been doing over the last wee while. We've got a number of things that we'd like to talk about. We're still going to be continuing to talk about new releases, as in where we can get to see them and time constraints and things, but we're also going to be continuing with our Hitchcock marathon as well. We will consult the spreadsheet and figure out what our next pairing is going to be, and we'll get into that. But dear listener, if you have any suggestions or ideas for like movie marathons or maybe films that have slipped through the net and you would like us to review it in any way, please don't suggest Beau is Afraid, because it's fucking awful. But you know, it would make a good pod, put it that way. It would be an interesting discussion talking about it. But it's been a very difficult film to see because it was only in the cinema for about a week, and it did.
Is that
really
because it was
badly.
shite?
I don't. Well, again, it was a 3-hour film.
I felt it.
About angst, and you did feel the 3 hours in this one. But I don't know. My view may change if I watch it again. I may really hate it. You never know.
I'm cool. I'm not going to watch it again.
Yeah.
I've not seen it.
I didn't have the same feelings towards it as you did, John. I just have no intention. There's nothing I think I'm going to get from it. There's still so much I could be watching. I
was just very disappointed because obviously Ari Aster has produced a couple of crackers before in Hereditary and Midsommar. So
I'm going to argue that I was
really looking forward to it.
I didn't like Hereditary. Midsommar's a much better film. Didn't like Hereditary, and that's why I felt a bit tentative about this one. And then you both said absolute, gutter wank, don't see it, and that was it.
The shame is I could see like the first half hour, 40 minutes. I thought this film's fucking brilliant. What's John talking about?
Yeah.
And then it's really pretentious.
Oh.
And there's one bit I don't know if it was meant to be funny near the end. And Mary, Andy, I can't wait for you to see that so we can discuss what's in the attic.
I don't know if I have 3 hours in me. I mean, in fairness, people laughed at Hereditary at certain points as well, like when.
Oh no, this is like you need to. I can't spoil it for you. I can't.
All right, okay. No, I need to find 3 hours of my life that I'm willing to sacrifice.
That isn't like people laughing because they're arseholes. Type find this is what the fuck. There's no way this isn't supposed to be funny.
I don't know if I can do.
It's not funny.
I don't know if I can do this to myself. The thing is, like, Joaquin Phoenix I really like, and he makes interesting choices, but I don't know if I have the 3 hours in me. I need to really, really focus. And given that I now have in the back of my head how much you two hate it, I'm scared that I go in and I'm like, that was brilliant.
just watch Sisu twice.
I'd rather, in fairness.
Yeah. So that's it from us. Thank you very much, my fellow podders, and thank you very much to the audience as well. One day we will meet you, and we could probably all fit into a phone box, so that will be lovely.
I met one. I met Andy for the Bang Bang podcast.
Of course, yes. Oh, you give him a shout out because he's always mentioning us when he's publicising his own podcast, and he's obviously made a point of want to come on at some point. I think we will arrange that. I'll leave that up to you, Simmy. We can find a suitable vehicle for us all to talk about at some point in the future. I'd very much enjoy that.
No holds barred.
Yeah, let's go there. Yeah.
You mean this wasn't?
Oh, the Hulk Hogan film, No Holds Barred.
Oh, right. Okay, I thought you meant this in general.
No. I knew exactly what you meant, unfortunately.
Oh dear.
So, from myself, thank you very much, and from my other colleagues, are you going to say cheerio, or are you're not going to bother?
Bye.
Bye.